Welcome back to our channel, World Coins History. As you knew that old is gold, but these rare $quarter coins that are most valuable than you think, don't spend one of them, so please watch complete video and find your treasure. Let's start this. Top 1. Today, we've got a very special story to share, one that connects history, culture, and collecting all in one beautiful coin. We're talking about the United States $quarter from 2022 that honors Wilma Mankiller, a true pioneer and the first female principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. This coin is not just currency, it's a piece of American history, and collectors everywhere are chasing after it. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this quarter is so unique, what makes it rare, and how much it could actually be worth. The Wilma Mankiller quarter is part of the American Women Quarters program, a series designed to highlight the remarkable women who shaped the United States. The decision to place Wilma Mankiller on a circulating coin was more than symbolic, it was groundbreaking. She led with courage, fought for indigenous rights, and became a figure of resilience and strength. Holding one of these quarters feels like holding a piece of her legacy in your hands. Now, let's talk about the design, because that's where the story comes to life. On the obverse, you'll find the classic portrait of George Washington, but on the reverse side, there's something truly powerful. The coin shows Wilma Mankiller in a dignified stance, wearing a traditional shawl, with the wind at her back and the Cherokee Nation seven-pointed star symbol proudly displayed. It's striking, it's detailed, and it's filled with meaning. This coin wasn't just made to be spent, it was made to inspire. So, what makes this coin rare and collectible? First, it's relatively new, but already people are holding onto them instead of spending them. That means fewer are circulating in pristine condition, and over time, this increases the rarity. Collectors especially look for coins straight from mint rolls or in uncirculated sets, because those examples maintain their sharp details and glossy luster. But there's something else: minting errors. Every time the US Mint strikes millions of coins, a few slip through with mistakes. These errors can include off-center strikes, double dies where details are duplicated, missing elements, or even plating issues. Believe it or not, an error can take an ordinary quarter and multiply its value many times over. Imagine finding one of these Wilma Mankiller quarters with a doubled inscription, or a striking flaw. It could be worth hundreds, even thousands, depending on the rarity of the error. That's why collectors search carefully, checking every detail under magnification. The Wilma Mankiller quarter also holds emotional value for many. For the Cherokee people, for women in leadership, and for collectors who love coins that tell a story, this isn't just metal, it's meaning. And that sense of pride and connection makes the demand for this quarter even higher. Now comes the part you've been waiting for: the value. In circulated condition, these coins are still easy to find, but in perfect uncirculated grades, or with rare errors, they can bring in serious money. Some examples have already sold at auction for over $1,000, while pristine collector-grade pieces regularly trade for hundreds. Remember, the original face value is just 25 cents, yet in the right condition or with a rare error, it has been known to fetch more than $1,000 in the market today. So, the next time you get a handful of change, don't just glance past those quarters. Look closely, check the details, and you might just have a little treasure hiding right in your pocket. Top 2, we're diving into one of the most talked about coins in U.S. history, the 1965 Washington quarter. Now, at first glance, this coin might not look too special, since millions were minted, and many are still in circulation today. But trust me, the story behind the 1965 quarter is fascinating, full of history, surprises, and hidden treasures that could be sitting right in your pocket change. Stay with me until the very end, because I'll reveal how much some of these rare pieces have sold for in the real market, and you won't believe it. The year 1965 marked a turning point in American coinage. For decades, quarters were struck in 90% silver, but rising silver prices created a huge problem. People began hoarding silver coins, and the US Mint feared that there wouldn't be enough coins to go around. So, in 1965, the Mint made a bold change: the Washington quarter was no longer made of silver. Instead, it was struck with a copper-nickel-clad composition, the same style we see in quarters today. This shift marked the end of an era, making the 1965 quarter historically significant. On the obverse side, you'll still find the familiar portrait of George Washington, facing left, with the word Liberty above and the date 1965 below. On the reverse side, the eagle design remains bold and majestic, wings spread wide with olive branches beneath, symbolizing peace and strength. The design didn't change, but what was inside the coin did, and that's what collectors truly care about. Now, here's where things get interesting. Even though the mint officially switched to clad quarters in 1965, a few silver planchets, leftover blanks from 1964, accidentally got struck with the 1965 date. These rare silver 1965 quarters are some of the most sought-after error coins in the entire Washington quarter series. Imagine holding a coin that looks like any other 1965 quarter, but when tested, it turns out to be 90% silver. Those mistakes are worth a fortune today, but that's not the only thing collectors look for. Other errors, like double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and weak strikes, can make a 1965 quarter very valuable. These minting mistakes don't happen often, but when they do, they create unique, one-of-a-kind coins. A normal circulated 1965 quarter might just be pocket change, but one with a striking error or made of silver is a real treasure. Condition also plays a huge role. Because these quarters were made for everyday use, most ended up scratched, worn, or heavily circulated. Finding one in uncirculated condition, with that original mint luster shining bright, is much harder than you might think. Collectors are always willing to pay a premium for sharp, well-preserved examples. So what does this all mean for value? Well, most 1965 quarters you'll find in your change are worth face value, but the rare ones, the silver planchet errors, the dramatic minting mistakes, or the pristine uncirculated examples, are a completely different story. In fact, some of these special quarters have sold in auctions for as much as $12,000, and high-grade error coins can easily bring in thousands. That's right, from just 25 cents to thousands of dollars, all depending on condition and rarity. It's incredible to think that a coin so common could have such hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. So, the next time you see a 1965 quarter, don't ignore it. Take a close look, check the edge for silver, inspect it for errors, and who knows, you might be holding one of the most valuable modern quarters ever made. Top 3, we're diving into the world of the United States Washington quarter from 1979. At first glance, this coin may look like an ordinary piece of change you could find in your pocket, but when we peel back the layers of history and start looking at its unique errors, conditions, and collector demand, the 1979 quarter becomes something truly fascinating. So stay tuned, because by the end, you'll know exactly why this coin matters and how much the rarest examples have sold for in the market. The year 1979 was an interesting one for U.S. coinage. By then, quarters were no longer made of silver, having switched to a copper-nickel clad composition back in 1965. That means every 1979 quarter you see is a clad coin, with a copper core and a nickel outer layer. Millions were struck, making them common in everyday circulation. But as every collector knows, rarity doesn't always come from mintage numbers, it comes from condition, unique varieties, and minting errors. On the obverse side, you'll see the classic portrait of George Washington, facing left, a design that had already been in use for decades. The word Liberty is above his head, the motto "In God We Trust" is to the left, and the date 1979 sits at the bottom. The reverse continues with the bold eagle design, wings outstretched, perched on olive branches, symbolizing strength and peace. Even though the design hadn't changed in years, what makes the 1979 quarter stand out is what went wrong during production. This is where collectors get excited: errors and varieties. Some 1979 quarters were struck off-center, leaving blank areas on the coin. Others show doubling in the lettering or details, known as double die errors. There are even quarters with filled-in mint marks, where grease or debris caused the D or S to appear faint or missing. Each of these errors transforms an otherwise ordinary coin into a collector's prize. Condition also plays a huge role. While most 1,979 quarters spent decades jingling in pockets and cash registers, some were preserved in uncirculated rolls or mint sets. These sharp, lustrous examples with no wear can be dramatically more valuable than the typical circulated ones. For serious collectors, finding a 1979 quarter graded at the highest levels by professional grading services is the ultimate goal. Another factor that makes this coin appealing is nostalgia. For many collectors, coins from the late 1970s bring back memories of childhood, of first coin collections, and of a time when the Washington quarter was still a workhorse of American currency. The sentimental value adds to the demand, and when combined with rarity and errors, it creates strong interest in this particular year. So what does all this mean for value? Well, most 1979 quarters in average circulated condition are only worth their face value. But when you find one in pristine, uncirculated condition or with a dramatic minting error, the story changes completely. Some of these rare 1979 quarters have sold at auction for as much as $2,000, and others in near-perfect condition often bring in hundreds. That's right, from just 25 cents to thousands of dollars, all depending on the condition, rarity, and error details. It's incredible to think that a coin so ordinary in appearance could hold such hidden value. So, the next time you see a 1979 quarter in your change, don't just spend it without looking. Check the details carefully, look for errors, pay attention to the condition, because you never know, you might be holding a little treasure in your hands. Top 4, we're taking a closer look at one of the most talked about Washington quarters in modern history, the 1982 quarter dollar. At first, it might look like just another old coin you could spot in your pocket change, but don't be fooled, this quarter has secrets that collectors know make it stand out. Some of them are so rare that they've sold for unbelievable amounts at auctions. Stick with me until the end, because I'll reveal the real prices these coins have brought in, and I promise it will surprise you. Now, the year 1982 was a turning point for U.S. coins. Due to budget constraints at the U.S. Mint, no official mint sets were produced that year. That decision might not sound like a big deal, but it made uncirculated 1982 quarters harder to find. Normally, mint sets help preserve coins in pristine condition, but since they weren't issued in 1982, collectors today have a much harder time finding flawless examples. That scarcity is one reason the 1982 quarter is already special. On the obverse, we have the familiar portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, with the word Liberty at the top, the motto "In God We Trust" to the left, and the year 1982 at the bottom. The reverse still carries the powerful eagle design, wings spread wide, perched on a bundle of arrows, with olive branches below. While the design itself didn't change, the circumstances around its production did, and that's what made this year so interesting. The lack of mint sets wasn't the only reason collectors love these coins. Errors and varieties play a huge role. In 1982, some quarters were struck with weak strikes, where details are faint or incomplete. There are also off-center strikes, double dies, and filled mintmark errors. Each of these mistakes creates a coin that stands apart from the millions of regular quarters. Error coins are like hidden gems, they were never intended, but they're the ones collectors chase the hardest. And here's another detail to watch for: condition. Because no mint sets preserved them, most 1982 quarters went straight into circulation, getting worn down with scratches, nicks, and discoloration. Finding a clean, sharp, uncirculated example is extremely challenging, and that's exactly why high-grade survivors are worth so much more. The difference between a worn-out quarter and a gem-quality one is like night and day when it comes to value. Collectors also appreciate the story behind this coin. It reminds us of the challenges the mint faced in the early 1980s, when inflation and costs shaped decisions that ended up influencing the hobby decades later. Owning a 1982 quarter in top condition is like holding onto a piece of numismatic history, and every collector who knows its story understands why it's in such high demand. Now, let's talk about value, the part you've been waiting for. In circulated condition, most 1982 quarters are still just worth face value. But in mint state condition, especially those graded at the highest levels or showing rare mint errors, these coins have sold for astonishing amounts. Some have crossed the auction block for more than $10,000, while others in near-perfect uncirculated grades can bring in hundreds or even thousands. That's right, from just 25 cents to more than $10,000, depending on condition, rarity, and error details. It's amazing how something so ordinary at first glance could be hiding such incredible value. Top 5. We're diving into the world of the 1994 United States Washington quarter, a coin that at first glance seems ordinary, but for collectors, it holds more stories and surprises than most people realize. So stay with me until the very end, because I'll reveal just how much some of these quarters have actually sold for in the real market, and you'll be shocked at the prices. The year 1994 came near the end of the long-running Eagle reverse Washington quarter design, which had been in use since 1932. Just a few years later, the famous 50-state quarters program would completely change the way people looked at this denomination. That makes the 1994 quarter one of the final, classic, issues of the Washington Eagle design, and for many collectors, it represents the closing chapter of an era in American coinage. On the obverse, we see George Washington's profile, designed by John Flanagan, with the word Liberty above, In God We Trust to the side, and the year 1994 at the bottom. The reverse, of course, features the bold eagle, wings outstretched, perched on arrows with olive branches beneath, a symbol of both peace and strength. It's a design generations of Americans grew up with, making it iconic in every sense. Now, here's where things get exciting. While millions of 1994 quarters were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, what separates the valuable ones from ordinary pocket change are condition and errors. The truth is, most of these coins entered circulation and suffered heavy wear, losing their sharp details and original shine. But those rare survivors in pristine, uncirculated condition can be worth far more than face value, especially when graded by professional services at the highest mint state levels. Errors are another reason collectors chase after the 1994 quarter. Off-center strikes are one of the most eye-catching mistakes, leaving part of the coin blank. There are also double die varieties, where letters or numbers appear doubled, and clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin's edge is missing due to a minting flaw. Some coins even show filled-in mint marks, caused by grease or debris clogging the die. Each of these errors makes the coin unique, and uniqueness in the coin world almost always translates to higher value. Another factor adding to collector demand is nostalgia. For people who grew up in the 1990s, the 1994 quarter carries personal meaning. It was part of their daily lives, their allowance, their pocket change at the store. Now, decades later, those same coins are being re-examined with a collector's eye, and the rare ones are commanding impressive prices. So what does all this mean for value? Well, the majority of 1,994 quarters you find in circulation are worth 25 cents, but that's not where the story ends. High-grade mint state examples and rare minting errors have crossed the auction block for thousands of dollars. Some pristine specimens have sold for more than $3,000, while certain error varieties have brought even higher prices. That's right, from a simple quarter to thousands of dollars, all depending on condition, rarity, and error type. It's truly amazing how a coin so common in appearance can turn out to be such a hidden treasure. So, the next time you spot a 1994 quarter in your pocket or coin jar, don't overlook it. Check its details, study its condition, and look carefully for errors. You might just discover that your loose change is worth far more than you ever imagined. Top 6. We're taking a closer look at the 1980 Washington quarter, a coin that might just be hiding in your pocket change or coin jar right now, but what makes this particular year special will absolutely surprise you. Stay tuned until the very end, because the real auction values on certain examples of this coin are going to leave you amazed. The 1980 quarter is an interesting piece of American coinage because it falls into a transitional time in U.S. minting. By this point, the quarter had already shifted away from silver, being struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition. However, even without silver content, these coins have gained attention for the unusual errors and pristine condition survivors that have kept collectors searching through their change for decades. On the obverse, we have George Washington's familiar profile, a design originally created by John Flanagan back in 1932. You'll notice the word Liberty above, the motto In God We Trust to the side, and the date 1980 placed at the bottom. The reverse features the classic eagle design, wings spread proudly as it perches on arrows with olive branches beneath, representing both military strength and the desire for peace. Now here's where it gets exciting for collectors. While millions of these coins were minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, most were used in circulation, meaning they became worn down through everyday handling. Finding one in high-grade, uncirculated condition with full details and a strong strike is far rarer than you'd think, and those coins are the ones collectors pay a premium for. Errors are another fascinating aspect of the 1980 quarter. Some of the most dramatic examples include off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing and blank space appears on the coin. Others include clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin's edge was cut off during production, and double-die obverse or reverses, where elements like the date, letters, or even parts of the eagle appear doubled. There are also examples where grease-filled dies caused parts of the design to fade or disappear entirely, creating unusual and unique varieties that collectors love. Another feature to pay attention to is the mint mark. In 1980, coins were struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark and in Denver with a small D mint mark. Some collectors seek out sharp, bold mint marks, while others are fascinated by coins where the mint mark appears weak or distorted due to striking issues. The beauty of coins like the 1980 quarter is that while most people see them as ordinary pocket change, dedicated collectors see them as pieces of history, each one telling its own story. And when it comes to errors, each mistake from the mint transforms what should have been a standard coin into a one-of-a-kind collectible. So what about value? The truth is, most 1980 quarters are only worth 25 cents if they've been used in circulation. But, for coins that survived in pristine mint state condition, or for those carrying dramatic and rare errors, the story is very different. Some examples of the 1980 quarter have sold at auction for over $1,000, and in certain cases, even higher. Yes, from just a quarter to thousands of dollars, all depending on condition and rarity. So the next time you come across a 1980 quarter, don't be too quick to spend it. Take a moment to study it closely, check its details, and you might be holding a small piece of treasure that most people would overlook. Top 7. We are diving into the fascinating world of the 1971 Washington quarter, a coin that at first glance may look like ordinary pocket change, but trust me, this one has plenty of secrets that collectors are eager to uncover. Whether you're a casual coin lover or a serious treasure hunter, you'll want to stay tuned all the way through, because the surprises hidden in the 1971 quarter are worth every second of attention. The Washington quarter had already been around for decades by 1971, first introduced back in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. But by this year, the coin had fully transitioned to the copper-nickel-clad composition, with no silver content in regular circulation issues. That change made the quarter more durable for everyday use, but it also meant that collectors began paying closer attention to details like condition, strike quality, and especially mint errors, which make certain examples of the 1971 quarter incredibly valuable today. The obverse of the coin shows Washington's iconic profile facing left, with the word Liberty above his head, the motto "In God We Trust" to the side, and the year 1971 at the bottom. On the reverse, you'll find the familiar eagle design by John Flanagan, wings spread, perched on arrows with olive branches beneath, symbols of strength and peace. It's a design collectors know well, but in 1971, the minting process created some remarkable varieties and mistakes that can transform an ordinary quarter into a prized collectible. Now, let's talk about rarity. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of these coins with no mint mark, and the Denver Mint struck millions more with the small D mint mark. With such a high mintage, you might think these coins are too common to be interesting, but that's not the case. What sets certain 1971 quarters apart is their condition. Uncirculated examples with sharp details, strong luster, and no wear are far scarcer than the circulated coins we see every day. Collectors especially prize coins graded at the highest levels, where every tiny detail of Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers appear crisp and bold. And then there are the errors, the part that makes coin hunting thrilling. Some of the most fascinating 1971 quarters show dramatic off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing and the coin displays a blank crescent of metal. Others have doubled dies, where the letters or date appear doubled under magnification, giving the coin a unique and eye-catching look. Clipped planchets, where part of the coin's edge was mistakenly cut off, are also known from this year, as well as struck-through errors where foreign material left behind impressions on the coin's surface. One of the most exciting varieties involves missing clad layers. Remember, these quarters were made with a copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel. In some cases, the top layer failed to bond properly, leaving a coin with a copper-colored surface that looks very different from a typical quarter. These mistakes are not only rare but highly desirable among collectors. Imagine finding one of these errors in a handful of change. Most people would overlook it, but coin enthusiasts know that such a piece could be worth hundreds, even thousands of times its face value. That's the beauty of coin collecting. Ordinary money can hold extraordinary surprises. So what about the value of the 1971 quarter? In circulated condition, most of these coins are worth just their face value of 25 cents. But the story changes dramatically for high-grade coins and rare errors. Some pristine mint state examples and dramatic error coins have sold at auctions for several $100s, and in certain cases, more than $1,000. Yes, from a simple quarter to four-figure treasures, all depending on rarity and condition. So the next time you come across a 1971 quarter, don't just pass it along in change. Take a moment to look closely. Check for sharp details, check for unusual doubling, missing layers, or strange shapes along the edges. That extra glance could reveal a valuable piece of history hiding in plain sight. Top 8. We're diving into the story of a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance, but once you understand its history and the details behind it, you'll realize why collectors hunt for it so passionately. We're talking about the United States $quarter from 1983, a piece of American coinage that carries more significance than most people realize. So sit back, pay close attention, and let's unravel why this particular quarter can sometimes be worth far more than just 25 cents. The year 1983 is an important one in the world of coin collecting. By then, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for over 50 years, and the design by John Flanagan featuring George Washington's profile on the front and the heraldic eagle on the back was as familiar to Americans as any coin could be. But here's where it gets interesting. The United States Mint did not produce any official mint sets in 1982 or 1983. That decision might not sound dramatic at first, but it created a situation that makes high-quality examples of these coins far scarcer than usual. You see, normally mint sets provide collectors with pristine, uncirculated versions of coins from each year. Without them, the only way to find a 1983 quarter in top condition is to hope one was saved straight from circulation. Because most of them were used in everyday commerce, they quickly picked up scratches, wear, and dull surfaces. That means today, truly gem-quality 1983 quarters are not easy to come by, and that scarcity pushes their desirability among serious collectors. Let's talk about the design for a moment. The obverse, or front side, proudly displays Washington's portrait, with the word Liberty above and the motto "In God We Trust" to the left, while the date 1983 sits at the bottom. Depending on where it was minted, you'll either see a small P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or no mint mark at all in some cases, as Philadelphia didn't always include its mint mark in earlier years. On the reverse, the eagle spreads its wings wide, clutching arrows in its talons with an olive branch beneath, symbols of readiness and peace. Now, when it comes to rarity and collector appeal, this is where things get even more exciting. The absence of mint sets combined with the sheer volume of circulation makes sharp, well-struck examples from 1983 much more valuable than your average quarter. Add to that the possibility of errors, and you've got the ingredients for a coin that collectors love to chase. Error coins from 1983 include dramatic off-center strikes, double strikes where the coin was hit twice by the dies, and clipped planchets where a small section of the coin's edge is missing. Some collectors have even found examples with striking doubling, where letters and numbers show a ghostly duplicate image. And perhaps the most eye-catching are coins struck on the wrong planchet, meaning they were minted on metal blanks meant for other denominations. These mistakes are rare, but when they surface, they can command incredible prices. Another factor that boosts the value of 1983 quarters is condition grading. Collectors prize coins that achieve the highest grades, often referred to as mint state 65 or higher. At these levels, the coin displays full luster, strong detail, and very few marks from handling. Because most 1983 quarters saw heavy use, coins in such pristine condition are true rarities today. So how much could one of these quarters actually be worth? Well, here's where things get truly exciting. While most circulated 1983 quarters are only worth their face value, uncirculated examples in the highest grades have been known to fetch hundreds of dollars at auctions. And if you happen to have one with a major minting error, its value could climb into the thousands. Yes, that's right, a small quarter minted in 1983 could be worth several hundred to several $1,000s, depending on its condition and uniqueness, and that's the magic of coin collecting. What looks like an ordinary piece of change could actually be a hidden treasure, waiting for someone with a keen eye to recognize it. Top 9. We're taking a closer look at a coin that millions of people carried in their pockets during the late 1990s, yet many never realized how special some of these coins could actually be. We're talking about the 1997 United States Washington quarter, a piece of American change that is far more interesting than most people think. If you're a collector or just someone who loves finding hidden gems in everyday coins, then you'll want to listen closely, because this story may surprise you. The Washington quarter had already been around for decades by 1997, first introduced in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By the time we reached 1997, the quarter still featured John Flanagan's classic portrait of Washington on the front and the proud eagle on the back. But what makes this year especially fascinating is that 1997 was the final year before the launch of the incredibly popular 50-state quarters program, which began in 1999. That means the 1997 quarter represents the very end of an era for the traditional eagle reverse design, and that alone gives it special collector appeal. Now, these quarters were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and the mint marks can be seen just to the right of Washington's ponytail. The Philadelphia coins carry a small p, while the Denver issues display a d. The San Francisco Mint also produced proof versions with an S mint mark, usually sold to collectors in special sets. While millions were made for circulation, condition and quality play a huge role in determining which 1997 quarters stand out today. For everyday circulated examples, most show plenty of wear from years of use. But uncirculated coins that were carefully saved from the start, or those that came directly from mint rolls, are much scarcer in pristine condition. Coins with sharp details, bright luster, and little to no contact marks are highly desirable, and when graded at the highest levels, they can bring impressive prices. And then we get into the really fun part: mint errors. The 1997 quarter is known for some truly fascinating mistakes that make it especially exciting to collectors. There are off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing and you see a blank crescent of metal. Double strikes, where the coin was struck twice by the dies, creating ghost-like images of the lettering and date, are also known from this year. There are even coins with clipped planchets, where a curved chunk of the coin's edge was cut away before striking, giving it a dramatic appearance. One of the most prized errors involves coins missing one of their clad layers. Remember, these modern quarters are made of a copper core with nickel plating on both sides. Sometimes, one of those nickel layers didn't bond correctly, leaving the coin with one side that looks completely coppery. These types of errors are very rare and instantly eye-catching, and they can command serious premiums when they hit the market. Collectors also pay attention to proof issues from San Francisco. These coins were struck with special polished dies and blanks, giving them mirror-like fields and frosted designs. Some 1997 proof quarters were made in 90% silver as well, and these silver proofs are always in demand. Spotting one in your collection can be a thrilling find, since silver always carries extra value. So, what about the actual value of the 1997 quarter? Well, here's where things get exciting. In circulated condition, most of these coins are still worth just their face value of 25 cents. But in high grades, mint state examples can sell for several tens of dollars, and proof silver versions often reach even higher. Error coins, especially dramatic off-center strikes, missing clad layers, or double strikes, can bring in hundreds of dollars. And in rare cases, the most spectacular errors have sold at auction for over $1,000. That's right, from a simple pocket change coin to four-figure treasures. The 1997 Washington quarter shows just how much hidden value can be waiting in everyday money. Top 10 and last rare coin. We're stepping back into the 1970s, a time of bold change in America, and we're taking a close look at a coin that might be sitting quietly in your collection, or even hiding in your pocket change. I'm talking about the 1973 United States Washington quarter, a coin that on the surface looks common, but when you dive deeper into its history, its rarity in certain conditions, and its errors, you realize it has much more to offer than just 25 cents of spending power. So coin lovers, listen carefully and enjoy this one, because the 1973 quarter has a story you don't want to miss. By 1973, the Washington quarter had already been around for more than 4 decades. Introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday, the design by John Flanagan had become a staple of U.S. coinage. The obverse still carried Washington's profile, with Liberty at the top, In God We Trust on the side, and the date 1973 at the bottom. The reverse featured the heraldic eagle with its wings spread wide, clutching arrows and resting above olive branches, representing both strength and peace. It's a classic design that remained until the late 1990s, making coins like the 1973 quarter part of a long, traditional chapter in American coin history. Now, the United States Mint struck these quarters at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, so you'll find them either with no mint mark, from Philadelphia, or with a small D on the obverse just next to Washington's ponytail. The San Francisco Mint also produced proof coins with an S mint mark, which were sold in collector sets. While the overall mintage numbers were in the hundreds of millions, what truly matters is condition, rarity of specific errors, and whether the coin has managed to survive the decades without heavy wear. Here's where it gets interesting. By the early 1970s, the mint was already producing copper-nickel-clad quarters instead of silver, a change that started in 1965. That means no standard silver quarters were struck for circulation in 1973, but the proof sets from San Francisco included some 40% silver issues, which are especially sought after today. Spotting one of those in a collection is always a thrill for a coin enthusiast, but what really makes 1973 quarters fascinating are the errors and varieties. Collectors are always on the lookout for double die obverse, where parts of the lettering or date appear doubled due to a slight shift during the hubbing process. Imagine spotting a 1973 quarter where the word Liberty or the motto In God We Trust shows a shadow-like doubling. That's the kind of mistake that transforms a common coin into a rarity. Off-center strikes are another dramatic error you might find from this year. These coins were struck incorrectly, leaving part of the design missing and a crescent of blank metal visible. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. Then there are clipped planchets, where a small curved piece of the metal blank was missing before striking, giving the coin a unique bite-shaped edge. Some collectors have even found coins with striking pressure issues, resulting in weak or incomplete details on Washington's hair or the eagle's feathers. These subtle varieties can be overlooked by most people, but sharp-eyed collectors know their importance. And perhaps the most exciting are transitional errors. Though rare, some coins were struck on the wrong metal blanks, like copper cents or nickel planchets. These wrong planchet strikes are incredible finds and can fetch serious premiums. Condition also plays a huge role in the story of the 1973 quarter. Most coins from that year were used heavily in circulation, showing scratches, dull surfaces, and worn details. But uncirculated examples, especially those graded at the highest levels like Mint State 65 and above, are far scarcer than you'd expect. Those coins with sharp, frosty luster and nearly flawless surfaces are the ones collectors compete fiercely to win. So what about value? Here's the part you've been waiting for. Circulated 1973 quarters are usually worth just their face value, 25 cents. But uncirculated coins in top grades can sell for several tens or even hundreds of dollars, especially if they are exceptionally well preserved. Proof versions, particularly the silver proofs from San Francisco, can also fetch strong prices. And when it comes to rare errors like dramatic off-center strikes, missing clad layers, or coins struck on the wrong planchet, these can sell for hundreds and even cross into the thousands at auction. Yes, that's right. Your ordinary-looking 1973 quarter could actually be worth several hundred to several $1,000s, depending on its rarity and condition, and that's what makes coin collecting so exciting. Every coin has a story, and sometimes that story reveals hidden value you'd never expect. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the 1973 quarter. If you enjoyed learning about this fascinating coin, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into rare and valuable coins. Until next time, keep searching, keep collecting, and may your next coin find be a true treasure.